Yeah, go on by, say whatever. Hop to the left, Bunny's on the scene. Fur so clean, move sharp, he's mean. Eyes like fire, trolls start to quake. Mess with the bunny, big mistake. Take her off, bunny, protect her of peace. Jumping through the chaos, never on a leash. Trolls come lurking, but they can't pretend. The bunny's here and it's the bitter end. Bugger off, bunny, protect her of peace. Jumping through the chaos, never on a leash. Trolls come lurking, but they can't pretend. The bunny's here and it's the bitter end. Connell's right hand and ear standing tall. One thumb from the foot sends him through the wall. Carrots in the pocket, wisdom in his paw. Trolls see the bunny, drop their jaw. Bounce, 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 the rhythm don't stop. Trolls try to climb but the bunny's on top. Guarded the guardian, defender of the land. The bugger off bunny with the master plan. Bugger off bunny. Jumping through the chaos, never on a leash. Trolls come lurking, but they can't pretend. The bunny's here and it's the bitter end. Swift as a shadow, silent in the night. Trolls meet the bunny, then they take flight. Ears like antennas, catching every sound. The bugger off bunny, king of the ground.
Sunsets and skies so blue. Mountains whisper stories of dreams so true. From oceans roaring wild to valleys deep, a heartbeat of a nation that will not sleep. Save South Africa, rise above the storm. Hands together strong, a new world is born. Beauty in our hearts, let it light the way. Evil cannot reign when we seize the day. The people sing louder than shadows can scream. Together we're stronger than the wicked scheme. The soil holds our history, roots run so long. A melody of freedom, we're singing strong. They may curse the land with lies they weave, but we hold the truth in what we believe. Their crowns may crumble, their thrones may fall, for the power is the people's above it all. Save South Africa, rise above the storm. Hands together strong, a new world is born. Beauty in our hearts, let it light the way. Evil cannot reign when we seize the day. People sing louder than shadows can scream. Together we're stronger than the wicked scheme. The people sing louder than shadows can scream. Together we're stronger than the wicked scheme. The people sing louder than shadows can scream. Together we're stronger than the wicked scheme. The soil holds our history, roots run so long. A melody of freedom, we're singing strong.
Marvin Divine. I'm saying bye to all the lies and all the times you cried, saying that I wasn't right, yet I was right by your side. You manipulator, playing games, your friends commentators, and I don't know what you say about our private conversations, but it's got them hating. Thanks to all the rumors you be claiming. It's cool, I'm done with you, so they can throw you a celebration. You gon' hate it when you see me with somebody living better. I'm trying to tell you that me just doing me gon' have you jealous.
Hello, folks. Welcome back to the program. This is Chris live in Central Pennsylvania for a special broadcast this morning. The Democratic Alliance, the opposition, collaboration partner of the African National Congress in the current government, will be giving a press conference after John Steenhuisen, the leader of the party, issued an ultimatum to President Ramaphosa just 48 hours ago. That ultimatum has expired, and we'll now see what the DA will do. Will they man up and leave the GNU? Will they file some sort of court case, or will they just thrash and moan? Welcome back to the program on a Saturday for a special broadcast. It's Chris in Pennsylvania, and my right-hand man, the bugger off bunny. Flippy, the bugger off bunny. Welcome back, folks. Well, there's lots to see here. We'll wait to see what Ramaphosa's got to say after this, but President Ramaphosa had some very strong words for John Steenhuisen. And let's take a prediction here. We'll do a poll. Let's do a poll. Start a poll. We'll do a couple polls. Will DA leave GNU today? Okay. I don't think they will, but we'll see. If they do, that'll be major news. All right, there you go, folks. The poll is up. Feel free to vote in that poll. We got about 500 people currently now. Yes, for those of you tuning in late, the opening song was the Bugger Off Bunny anthem. Yeah, it's Bugger Off Bunny. I did that to a reggae beat. I hope you like that. Yeah, it's my right-hand man. Flip to the left. The trolls. Yes. Anyway, Bugger Off Bunny is here with us. Good to see you all again. So, predictions. I'm not sure what to predict on this. The DA is unpredictable at times. Other times they're very predictable. I think the predictable thing is that the DA will stay in the GNU. I think that's a predictable thing. But we shall see, ladies and gentlemen. Let me say hello to some of the people in the audience here, if not as many as I can get here. A lot of folks tuned in early. Yellow Margarine. Isn't margarine always yellow? Thank you for becoming a team member. Utopi, thank you as well. Wow. Buster B says, as we go to cheer the Bucks today, remember that we're the only country in the world. There's a quota policy and government interference in sport. Yeah, I think let that sink in. Dylan Combrick's here. Helen of Troy. Helen, I still haven't found your email unless I'm writing back to it. I don't realize it. Yeah, Sundra Young, can't wait for the Bucks. Yep. You know, the Bucks have lost 2 of 3 games to the Barbarians in the professional era. They don't have a good record. They don't have a good record against the Barbarians. It's been, I think, 2000 was the last time they beat the Barbarians, so they need to win. Freya Menzel, hoping that DA will motion no confidence. That's, I think, is a possibility. Motion no confidence. Why is my video hanging up over here? YouTube is hanging already on me. I hope you guys are getting a live feed, because I'm getting nothing over here. Hello. Okay, I'm live. It's just YouTube is acting up. A little slow today. There it is again. Wow. Am I getting slow throughput? What's going on here? Hopefully you guys are getting good feed. All right, let me just, if it reloads here, and I'll put on pause. Oh, not receiving enough data yet. There's a problem, so I'll stop that. Okay. Overall losing record against the Babas. Yeah, they don't have a great record against them, that's for sure. So anyway, good morning to you folks. Freya Menzel's here, and she's hoping for a vote of no confidence. That's a possibility. When a 31% tariff hit, they can say how their deputy minister at least tried to prevent it. Yeah, but that isn't going to fly. Good evening, or good morning, everyone. So it's hanging on this side too. Yep. Yeah, that's what I figured. Something's going on here. They're messing with me here. They're messing with me. Let me see. Let's check. I'll check my speed real quick here, folks. I don't need this crap. Whenever I have something big like this, this is what happens here with this provider. Yeah, the internet connection is very slow right now. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm still connected based on this. What's going on here? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. What the hell? This is unbelievable. This is why I need Starlink. Wow. There it is. Now it says it's fine. Now it says it's fine. Well, the ANSI's not responsible for the buffering, that's for sure. Now it says 17, so should be good now. Okay, how about the coalition partners walk out and run the cancer? And yeah, well, I would think that would be a good idea, but I don't think that's going to happen unless they've talked to them. Be surprised conditions of trade Mulder and pronounced weren't already presented at the Oval Office press conference. Yeah, I think they were presented in private. Yeah. Yep, that's why they haven't talked about the discussion. Yep, I think they told them back then. Half our cabinets out of the country sipping champagne. Yep, I'm with you on that one. Yeah, that's not YouTube though. Could be me. Yeah, no, it's fine on this end again. It was. I think the problem was my end. Let's see if it's working now. So I'm getting download of about 800 megabytes per second, and then I'm getting fluctuating internet between 17 and 1 megabytes. This is insane. This provider is so annoying. Yeah, I'm trying to keep going, but because if I stopped, I lose everybody and people don't come back. So sorry for that. But I'm going to need faster connection because I've got see many crickets. I've got to take the feed when it starts. So this is ridiculous. Freaking YouTube. Yeah, let's hope the announcement is saucy. That's what I'm hoping for. But the DA is not with us yet, folks. So let's see what are you guys saying in the poll? Let's see what you're saying in the poll. So where are we at here? In the poll, you guys are saying they will not leave. 300 votes. Yep. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's hopefully it will just pick up. What I'll do is after this broadcast is I'll reset my internet after we're done here, and hopefully that'll have an impact. If only John could have been brave enough to speak the truth at the White House, he would have buried the GNU. Well, if it only had been brave enough for the DA to step forward with the line in the sand over the expropriation without compensation being signed, with national health insurance being signed and implemented, with the Bella Bill being signed and implemented, or with the black tax being proposed. Yep. If only that had been the case for the DA, but they haven't done it. They haven't stepped forward. They haven't done it. Yeah, apparently, well, maybe the Iranians have hit the internet. Who knows? Thank you guys for hanging out here. Yeah, I think it'll be a tactical retreat, not fleeing. I think you're right, Odin's Viking. I think today, depending on their action today, the DA could lose an awful lot more votes. An awful lot more votes. What do you guys think about that? I think that's a very strong possibility today as we get ready again. Feed is fine in Gordon's Bay. Hey, Gordon Jarvis. Well, isn't that ironic? Gordon lives in Gordon's Bay. I bet you you hear that a lot. DA were founded on left-wing policies, so fitting with the ANC isn't much of a stretch. I agree, Buzz Apex. I've always said the Democratic Alliance is left-wing, and that's why it's so funny to see black racists call them right-wing, and the media in South Africa call them right-wing. It's not. Might be a bit behind here. I see President Trump mention suspending refugee resettlement. That's not what he said. People hear what you want to hear. You hear what you want to hear. That is not what he said. It's not what Trump said. It's not what he said. He was talking about his policies that have been attacked by leftists in the courts, one of which is when he suspended aid, and one of which is when he suspended the refugee program. The leftists went to court to try to stop Trump from doing that. The courts agree with Trump that he could do that. So that's what he's saying. He's not suspending anything. You guys are hearing what you want to hear. Very selective hearing. Pay attention to what he said. Pay attention to what he said. Please. And you're not the only one. Lots of people yesterday. No, it's 260 likes right now. Lots of people yesterday were complaining about that, saying, oh, Trump said he's going to suspend the refugee program. He did not say that. He never said that. Now watch, the leftists will run with some nonsense claiming that's exactly what's going to happen. That is not what he said. That is not the case. Oh, come on. My provider is so pathetic here. It's unbelievable. I can't believe I'm even live right now. Media Center says, nope, the DA got this. Do they really? Well, I hope you're right, but how have they got it? Tell us how they got it. Yes, Steenhuisen is the white Minister of Agriculture. He had his chance to shine at the Oval Office, but failed miserably. Yep. The moment the DA said they only want to keep the EFF and MK out, the ANC knew they could walk over. Exactly. That's exactly right. That is exactly right. What they should have said is that the ANC needs us in this coalition for the betterment of South Africa, because without us, they can't form a government. That's what they should have said. They held all the cards. The DA held all the cards. They have approached this entire process as a weak, feckless, powerless party, and it's embarrassing. What is the black tax? Well, Parks Tao proposed a 3% post-profit tax on all corporations in South Africa. The money will be funneled into a fund for black businesses. So if you own a business and your margin is 3.2% profit, you're now going to have to take 3% and give it to the government so they can give it to someone who's black because they're black, not because they're good or worthy, but just because they're black, and then they get to use that money to build a business to compete with you to drive you out of business. That's the black tax. I call it the black tax. No one else is calling it the black tax. They're calling it the transformation fund. I'm calling it the black tax because that's what it is, the black tax. The DA will fail once again and dance to Ramaphosa's tune. I don't disagree. So the dorks are back. Who are the dorks, Johan? Celia's Brink is doing a good job, so the next municipal elections I'll vote. Well, yeah, but you don't vote for him. That's the problem, Freya. You don't vote for Celia's Brink. You vote for the Democratic Alliance. They get to pick who your mayor is going to be, not you. South Africa has a broken democratic system in which they filter the parliamentary process all the way down to municipal level. It doesn't work on a municipal level or even a provincial level. The DA is bleeding votes, I agree, until they promise a lot to the public again, then they forget it. It's a constant repeat of outing them, believing their lies, outing them, believing their lies never stops. Yep. DA, just like the Democrats in the United States. Yep. Carla Peter, say welcome to you. Pearly white shaped too. What's that? Because the ANC diverted funds from electrical maintenance. Yeah, but the ANC isn't running Schwane. Action SA is running it. No ways I'll vote for DA guy. I know a lot of people really not happy with that political party. Really, really not happy with it. And with good reason. With good reason. Well, let's see. Yeah, yeah, okay, it's a little bit better now. It's picking up. But the problem with this internet connection is it's also, the other problem I've got with it is that I'm supposed to be getting a gigabyte of download, and I'm only 700. So there's clearly something wrong with the network here this morning. DA are cock pocket players. Yes, is Steenhuisen a little page boy for Ramaphosa? Good question. DA lost my vote. They have spineless and mindless staff. Yep. Yeah, the DA's done themselves in. So only 442 votes out of 720 people here. Come on, folks. We can do better than that. We can do better than that. Let's get a vote in here on the poll. I think Zilla and Leon are now pull their hair out. Yeah, I think they will. Starts leaving but coming back. Okay, thank you. Anti-DA sheeple. Anti-DA sheeple. Sheeple. Media Center. How are people who are opposed to the DA's useless policies sheeple? How exactly are they sheeple? Please explain. I mean, I'm curious. I'd like to know how. So please, Media Center. Let me. You're right. The people here are being sheeple because I remember very clearly when the Democratic Alliance said expropriation without compensation is a line in the sand. We will not allow that. Except it happened. I remember them complaining about the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act, saying you cannot do this. It's an assault on our cause. We will not allow it. Only they let it happen. I can remember the DA talking about how national health insurance will destroy this country. We'll go to court to stop it. Only it happened. I remember the DA promising in the Western Cape that they would hold a referendum on Cape independence. Only they never did. They never did. Huh. Who is saying the refugee program is in jeopardy, Johan? Who is saying that? No, the black tax has not been passed, Janine. It's not been passed. So who is saying the refugee program is in jeopardy? See, that's the problem. South Africans and their cock prodding, telling fairy tales and running around spreading rumors. You know what? I'll tell you what. If people want to believe the nonsense, you want to hear what you want to hear, that's on you. I can't fix that. I can't fix that. You know, there's nothing I can do about that. That's just how things are. He canceled his trip to Spain. Ooh, are they going to have a vote of no confidence? All right, if we get enough votes, I'll go with we're going to have a vote of no confidence. Will the DA lead a vote of no confidence against Ramaphosa? Freya says, Action SA may be the mayor, but ANC is running the show. Not according to Action SA. Ramaphosa gets a no confidence vote. What happens? Does he get... No. If he loses the vote of confidence, see, that's the problem with the parliamentary system. You didn't vote for president, so anybody can call a vote of no confidence at any time in the parliament. And if 201 people vote him out of office, he's gone. But the DA doesn't have the votes. They don't have the votes. Yeah, you can't fix stupid, Anthony. You're right. $12,500 system for registered youth, job seeker, age 18 to 35. What is that? What is that, David? Compels leaders to focus on business instead of scavenging. Let's see if the... Yeah, that's a good point there, Buzz Apex. Yeah, if the aid isn't coming, you can't scavenge aid. You've got to be a business person. Should have done a bingo on what they will say next time. Well, let's get some more votes up for will the DA leave. Okay. All right, so it looks like it's pretty consistent there. It's about 3 out of 4 of you are saying they will not leave. So I'm going to end that poll and start a new poll before we get started. We got 10 minutes before this briefing is supposed to start. So let me go ahead and get that started. Okay, here we go. All right, so there we go. All righty. I'll try to test this again, see what we got. No, it's still not fast enough for download. It's picking up, it's not great. And the upload, there we go, 15. Yeah, they are such a mess. Okay, so say what you want about Ramaphosa. He will run things around. Yeah, well, I think you're right, but he doesn't run around. He trots around like a hippo, like a wounded hippo. All right, so we want to put a new poll up. New poll is going to be voted no confidence. Will DA motion for a vote of no confidence in? Okay. Ramaphosa. All right, there you go. It's a new poll up, folks. DA ministers be kicked out of cabinet with a motion of confidence. Well, of course, Dirk. That's a given. That's a given. People not listening to many watch fake podcasts. I agree with you. Anyone who ends a sentence with hello are telling you that they dream themselves smarter and more informed than you. Really? Okay. Can we all just agree that the colonel let us know if anything changed about the refugee program? Yeah, exactly. Stop stressing. Thank you. Thank you so much. How are we to keep the criminal parties weak if the biggest opposition being the DA is leaking support? Well, that support should be flowing to the opposition parties. It should be going to ACDP or to the Freedom Front Plus. Nil compensation is still compensation. Exactly. Wasn't it Dean McPherson who said nil compensation is still compensation? It was a guy saying the sheeple. You're the sheeple, man. Public Western Cape is the safest route. You'll never govern South Africa, DA. Your moment is now. Yeah, there you go. Wet pants DA is not even just talk. If they stay or go, it will be detrimental to the DA either way. Plus, I really don't see any other party for us that I can vote for. Unfortunately for me, I don't want to vote for them again. Well, Sonia, what do you mean you don't see another party? Why don't you see another party? See, that's the problem. That's the problem. You know, the DA was a 1% party when it started. It was an amalgamation of the Liberal Party and others. It was 1%. That's all it had. That's all it had. We need a referendum to remove Ramaphosa. I agree. And maybe that's what they're going to do today. That's why I put the vote up. It's running neck and neck, 51-49, though, folks. Wow, let's see who's right on this one. Yeah, referendum remove Ramaphosa would be spot on. Haven't got any dignity, bunch of losers, says George. Hey, George, where you been? Heckport, I haven't seen you in ages. I hope you're well. Okay, so still waiting for...
Municipalities in South...
Okay, they're playing their ads. Sorry. Claire Myberg, thank you for being a subscriber. Let me read to you Ramaphosa some of his message here before we go live. So this is what Ramaphosa did. He basically threatened. He threatened Steenhuisen. But then Steenhuisen threatened Ramaphosa. He said there's an ultimatum. And here we are now, 51 hours later, almost 51 hours since the ultimatum. He gave him a 48-hour ultimatum, which expired at noon. And we will see shortly what the DA is going to do. I don't think they're going to do much. But this is what Ramaphosa's response was, in part. Ramaphosa said, given all these circumstances, there is consequently no reasonable grounds for Mr. Steenhuisen and the Democratic Alliance to issue ultimatums and threats when the president exercises his constitutional prerogative and responsibility. Nor are there any grounds to try to link this with matters that have no bearing on the conduct of the former deputy minister. Yeah, well, that's because Steenhuisen said that he got sacked after, Paul Mashatili's name came up in the lotto fraud. Anyway, so he continues. There's really no basis for suggestions that the dismissal of the former deputy minister is related to any other reason than his failure to receive permission to travel and adhere to the rules and established practices expected of members of the executive of the Republic of South Africa. Now, the problem with that, folks, is there very much is a reason to doubt. There's very much a good reason to doubt that because the hypocrisy of Cyril Ramaphosa. Because remember in 2020, what happened in 2020? Do you guys remember this? And Simon Grinderod did a very good job on Twitter reminding us of this. But in 2020, the defense minister, Mapisa Nkola, stole an aircraft from the South African Air Force. That's essentially what it is because it's misappropriation of funds. That's theft. And flew without permission to Zimbabwe, exercising foreign policies on behalf of the ANC without the permission of the president as a minister, not as deputy minister, but as a minister. The defense minister went to Zimbabwe and took a plane load full of civilians illegally to Zimbabwe. Was she sacked? No. All she got was a letter of reprimand and a fine. and she's still floating around like most turds in the ANC. So it's very much appropriate there, Cyril Ramaphosa. You're such a hypocrite. You're such a liar. Remember this? There you go. In September of 2020, Defense Minister Mapisa Nakula flew to Zimbabwe on an Air Force plane without permission from Ramaphosa. He granted permission after she came back and gave her a reprimand and a fine. That's it. That's all that happened. It is a clown car show of epic proportions. And Cyril Ramaphosa is such a hypocrite and such a liar when he says that this is all about Andrew Whitfield having gone to the United States 3 months ago. That response came within days of that being exposed by the media and by me. Whitfield went to the States months ago, and most people didn't even know he was part of the delegation with Emma Powell. So, this is comical to say the least. Melody says the DA is just another bunch of New World Order stooges. The only news that I follow on your channel, I don't believe anyone else. Well, thank you for that, Dawn. Appreciate you being here. If the parties stand together in Alsace, we are lost. Or you're lost already, Ian Moore. I mean, Ian Moon, I got to ask you, what exactly are you guys waiting on? A fish course? First off, now your children must be forced to be learning English, which is the first language of just 6% of South Africans. That's the first thing. You have no control over what your schools teach. So if they choose to teach radical transgender ideology, you have no say. It's determined by Panyazi Lesufi in Gauteng and by Alan Windy in the Western Cape, by Oscar Mabuyane in the Eastern Cape. Is that what you want? The government now will steal your land without any compensation whatsoever on the fraudulent claim that it's abandoned. And it'd be abandoned because it's been occupied illegally and they've done nothing to protect the property owner. Let's see what else have they done. Let's see. That's what the ANC has done. Now, pretty soon, if you have low margins in your business, you're going to hand over 3% of your profit to black-owned businesses so they can compete against you. Yeah, and that's not going to be misused. That's not going to be a slush fund for the ANC to take money. Of course it is. Yeah, I don't know, Ian, what you're saying. You're already lost. South Africa's collapsing around you. The male Jody Taylor's back. Man, I haven't seen some of these people in ages. The parliament then has to vote among the candidates put forward by various... Correct. When he gets a vote of no confidence, then they have to put another candidate forward. So he could get voted back in. Who is going to work if they're paid 12,000 Rand a month? That's not a lot of money, truth bombs. What did PK say? Francois with a capital F, DA will threaten court action by Friday. Steenhuisen will be kissing boots again. Yeah, I think that's probably spot on. Color people don't trust DA anymore as they say Steenhuisen talks too much, no action. Well, Anthea Crook, I cannot blame them. 100%. What about Steenhuisen? Freedom for Plus needs to pull in all the top players from all the parties. They have what it takes, to make South Africa great again with the right people in the right seats, says Shane. Okay. All right. It's time for the Freedom Front Plus to tell the DNC, hold my beer. Exactly. Is storing undeclared money in couches it's a criminal offense. It's a criminal offense. But it hasn't been charged. Just like Zwaylim Kesey has not been charged in the Digital Vibes case. Criminal offense. Okay, well, they're now there. So let's go and get them up on the screen here. The DA, we're waiting for this now. All right, they're playing music, so I have to turn that off. But the DA, let's see what they've got to say. Lovely room. Lovely room. As the media gets set up there, we'll be going live with the DA here in just a few minutes. Okay, now I got to make sure I'm still in good shape here. That's not right. That's not what I wanted. Okay, hang on, folks. All right, so I've got the wrong window up. Let me take care of this really quickly here. I knew I'd screw that up. So I have to be able to go back and forth during the live stream. So there we go. Now we're good. Right. Okay. So, yep. So we're waiting for that. Are we still live? Gosh, I can't see any movement over here. There we go. Let's watch John waddle in. Yeah. Let's see what's going on here. Okay. Yeah. So, folks, we got a couple predictions here from the audience. A couple predictions. Thank you all for that. Do appreciate it. Watch the increase in business registrations once they start the black tax that will all lead to the caters. Exactly. There'll be a mass flow of business into business applications and filing for businesses into government. That will be what happens, ladies and gentlemen. That's a spot on prediction there. There'll be tens of thousands of businesses, all of them fraudulent, so they can claim the money. David from South Africa, David Flom, welcome to you, is storing. Okay. Where did the guy go who was saying that people were sheeple? He didn't last very long. Children's education be turned by a bunch of witch doctors, who take children out and slice their genitalia apart in the bush after rubbing them down with gray clay. Yeah, illegally, by the way. The DA's red button is for Russia or China. Please. Arctic is hoping they leave the GNU. Well, now Iran is out of the picture. ANC has to get its money somewhere with 3% black tax. Exactly. That's exactly why it's in place. Okay, there we go. Got some people there waiting. Reflected back on what my father explained, economics and apartheid and people being told wealth lies in your children. Population growth out of control. Yeah, wealth doesn't lie in your children. That's what held the world back for centuries. Wealth lies in innovation and creativity and initiative and free capital. That's where wealth lies. Yeah, people who think that their wealth is their children or their cattle are trapped in a history that's 500 years old, and they will never prosper. Never prosper. The world isn't big enough for 8 billion people to have 1,000 head of cattle each. Not to mention the methane coming from that. One's the smart girl just subscribed. Thank you for subscribing. Appreciate that. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a look at the poll. We've got 505 votes. Let me take a look at the results thus far because I don't see it on this screen. I have to come over here. Okay, and so far it's still 51-49. It's pretty even. The reason it's frozen is because I switched between windows. It doesn't stay active, so sorry about that. Hope it's not all talk. It will be all talk and no action from the DA. If the DA leaves the GNU or calls for vote no confidence, I will be astounded. Absolutely astounded. There's Willy Okamp, isn't it? There's John Steenhuisen. Here we go. Here we go. Helen's there. Here we go.
Good afternoon, colleagues. Good afternoon, South Africa. My name is Karabo Khachau, DA National Spokesperson. Thank you so much for all availing yourselves for today's press briefing. Leading the press briefing today on behalf of the Democratic Alliance is the federal leader of the Democratic Alliance, that is John Steenhuisen, and then followed by the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance, that is Dr. Ivan Meyer. We also have the chairperson of the Federal Council of the DA, that is Helen Ziller, as well as Willy Okamp, who's also one of our national spokespersons. So I won't give you anything to bite on yet. I'll give on to John to give us the address.
Here we go. Let's see if he's got a pair.
Thank you very much, Karabo, and greetings to those of you who've made your way to the press conference, but also to those South Africans who are no doubt watching at home. Thank you for making yourselves available, and I do promise that we will be finished in time to watch our mighty Springboks crush the barbarians this afternoon.
He looks haggard. Look at his face.
My fellow South Africans and citizens, a year ago, the formation of the multi-party coalition, now known as the Government of National Unity, filled our country with enormous hope.
Not really, only suckers.
It followed the decision of the people of South Africa to remove the outright majority that the ANC had enjoyed in South Africa since the historic elections of 1994. But in last year's election, the people of South Africa sent a very clear message that they no longer wanted the ANC to do as they pleased, regardless of the consequences for our country.
But they still do.
The people of South Africa said very loudly that they were tired of corruption, they were tired of grinding unemployment, and that they were tired of an economy that had not grown meaningfully for decades. Instead of one-party domination that had been known since that election in 1994, the people chose something different. They wanted multi-party cooperation and collaboration. In short, the people of South Africa wanted to see things change.
But they haven't got change.
And it was based on this mandate of change that the Democratic Alliance, after extensive introspection and inward discussion, made a decision to join the Government of National Unity.
Nonsense. They jumped at the chance.
However, instead of upholding the wishes of the people by working in a collaborative, respectful manner with all parties inside of the GNU, the ANC has repeatedly undermined these principles. Time after time, it has slapped away the hand of cooperation and co-creation in favor of arrogant, narrow, partisan party political interest.
ANC way or the highway.
Right from the beginning, the statement of intent was violated.
Yep, they went to other parties.
By appointing a bloated executive without consulting the DA on the other parties that were to be joining, in order to give the ANC more influence than the voters wanted it to have. President Ramaphosa has since signed destructive pieces of legislation into law that have far-reaching consequences for our economy and economic growth, as has been seen by the reaction from some of our largest trading partners.
Don't like it, go elsewhere, John.
This was done without even the common courtesy of informing the fellow partners in the government of national unity about his intention to do so.
Yep.
He has presided over a disastrous budget process where the views and opinions of coalition partners were not taken seriously, and that the opposition to the ANC's proposed 2% VAT increase was simply waved away. There's been a refusal to enable a meaningful power sharing to drive collaborative growth and urgent reform of the country to create jobs. And that is why our unemployment statistics are sitting where they are, and why our first quarter of GDP growth has not come anywhere near the expectations that we would like to see it moving towards, the 3% that we've set ourselves as a target. And this week, without any significant forewarning or meaningful consultation, President Ramaphosa concocted an excuse to remove a DA deputy minister out of the blue because of his own failure to respond to a repeated request for travel permission. The hypocrisy of this conduct is even more galling when one looks at what sits around the cabinet table in terms of violations of law, of executive ethics code, and the ministerial handbook. It was the same President Ramaphosa who in 2020 issued a mere reprimand and salary docking
There you go.
to former Minister Nosiviwe Mapisa-Nqakula
Yep.
when she flew an ANC delegation to Zimbabwe in a South African military plane.
Without permission.
To make matters worse, President Ramaphosa has now also defied the 48-hour ultimatum issued to him by his largest coalition partner to act on corruption in his own ranks. This was a golden opportunity for the president to demonstrate that action against those who violate the expectations of them in public office would be taken consistently and fairly in government.
It better leave after all this.
By doing so, he has now actively chosen to protect Minister Thembi Simelane for her alleged role in VBS looting. He's also chosen to protect Nobushle Nkabane after she has actively misled Parliament. And he continues to shield a whole cast of looters implicated in state capture. Just this morning, less than 2 hours ago, instead of taking action against state capture, the ANC has cleared Malusi Gigaba, David Mashlobo, Zizi Kodwa, and Cedric Frolic from all charges against them.
They got to leave now.
Now, despite this pattern of double standards and abuse of power, DA members of the executive have remained clearly focused on the task at hand, on our commitment to deliver to the people of South Africa and to play a meaningful role in creating jobs, growing the economy, and ensuring good, clean, accountable government that delivers for the people of South Africa. And the strides that we've made in a number of portfolios, from agriculture, home affairs, public works and infrastructure, communications and digital technologies, as well as environment, and through hard-working deputy ministers like Andrew Whitfield, I believe has set a new standard of excellence for governance at national level. In some cases, DA ministers have literally achieved more in 12 months than ANC ministers did in 30 years.
Agreed. Home affairs.
And perhaps this is the real source of the ANC's double standards
Yep.
towards the DA, because they know that the DA is succeeding. They know that the performance of DA ministers makes some of their contributions pale into insignificant. And, most importantly, they know that the opportunities for looting and stealing of public money are shrinking wherever the DA is present and wherever DA reforms are implemented. This flagrant double standard
Helen looks
that
morose.
protects the likes of Simelane and Kabane but acts against Whitfield proves that in the ANC's universe, the only things you dare not be are competent, honest, and hardworking.
Oh, that hurts.
But sadly, this is not an isolated incident.
Nope.
It is about a pattern of disrespect, arrogance, and double standards.
They're leaving.
The
They're
ANC
leaving.
has refused to implement Clause 19.3 of the Statement of Intent that requires sufficient consensus to resolve disputes, directly undermining the GNU and the original Statement of Intent. And the President's now refusal to act against corruption within his own ranks, but singling out as a priority a DA Deputy Minister, risk confirming that his oft-repeated public commitment to clean governments is a sham. Until he replaces words with action against corruption within his own ranks, the DA sees no further point in wasting our breath in endless talk shops with the ANC.
Ooh, here it comes.
For that reason, the
Here it
Democratic Alliance's federal executive, which met at 1 p.m. today,
Yeah?
has resolved to withdraw from the national dialogue with immediate effect.
Oh, the national dialogue.
In the absence of a president
Please.
who's prepared to take action
Oh, God.
against VBS looters and state capture accused sitting around the cabinet table, it is clear that the dialogue will be reduced to nothing more than a waste of time and money to distract from ANC failures. And this explains why they are so obsessed with it. It's clearly an electioneering ploy at taxpayers' expense to gloss over the serious crises that they have plunged South Africa into. The dialogue also has no constitutional standing whatsoever to take or impose decisions. Frankly, if the President cannot even dialogue sufficiently and meaningfully with his own coalition partners,
How's he going to do it with the country?
there is little point to pretending that there's any substance to an ANC-run national dialogue. In fact, the President has repeatedly promised a breakaway to engage with GNU party leaders. But a year later, despite several promises that this would take place, nothing has happened. After every single crisis the GNU has faced, this so-called breakaway or Bosbarat has been mooted, plans are made, but never comes to fruition. Similarly, a proposed breakaway for the cabinet to deal with how we interact with each other as cabinet members and resolve disputes and disagreements that will inevitably arise in a government made up of more than 10 political parties. A year later, nothing has happened. No breakaway, no dialogue, and no mechanisms internally to determine how we deal with disputes between each other when they arise. Plus, I make the point that we have already had a national dialogue last year. It's called an election. And the people said very clearly in that election that they do not want to have anything to do with ANC one-party arrogance or domination. So, effective immediately, and until action is taken against those corrupt individuals, the DA will have no further part in this process. We will also actively mobilize against it in order to stop the obscene waste of 740 million rand of public money, starting with a call on all civil society bodies in South Africa to join us in demanding that the dialogue not proceed until President Ramaphosa fires ANC corrupt individuals in the national executive, as well as other delinquents.
Speaking of
Because
delinquents.
the reality is, no matter what the dialogue resolves, no matter how many noble resolutions it may take,
They just don't get it.
and no matter how many feel-good moments it has, nothing will change in South Africa for the better if we keep the same people around the cabinet table who have involved themselves in corruption, maladministration, and misleading of Parliament. The people of South Africa should not be taken for fools. They know that any national dialogue is utterly meaningless if it's presided over by the criminals and the corrupt and those who provide a safe refuge for them. A second and critically important step that the DA is taking is to vote against upcoming departmental budget votes for the departments headed by Simelane Nkabane and other corruption-accused ANC ministers.
Oh, feel the burn.
And we will keep voting against those budget votes until those ministers are removed. In this way, the DA will strike a responsible and appropriate balance by allowing the broader GNU budget process to proceed to ensure the stability of the country, while forcing the ANC to act against those specific ministers who the public now demand are removed. I think it also bears mentioning that the DA will always act in a responsible manner and one in which puts the interests of South Africa first.
No, you're not.
The demonstration of that good faith was shown just this week in the National Assembly, where, despite the unilateral axing of Deputy Minister Whitfield, and despite the fact that the President had given me his word that I had 24 hours to notify Mr. Whitfield and brief my party about the step he was about to take, he simply fired off the letter sacking Deputy Minister Whitfield 3 hours later. Now, had we wanted to be petty, had we wanted to make this about positions over principle, it would be very easy to go into the National Assembly and vote against the Division of Revenue Act that took place this week. It was very clear from the panicked reactions during my speech that the ANC did not have the numbers, and they knew it, to get that passed.
So you should have done it.
And yet, as I indicated in that speech, we are a reliable coalition partner. We respect our coalition partners. And when we give our word and we make undertakings, we stick to them. We do not treat our coalition partners with the same disrespect that they have shown to us repeatedly. If the ANC wants support for those budgets, they must replace the incumbent ministers with alternatives that meet the very high standard that the President has set for himself now through the axing of Andrew Whitfield.
Notice he's not standing up for Whitfield at all.
A further step that was considered by the Federal Executive was the tabling of a motion of no confidence in the President. We understand the concerns that many South Africans have about what would follow or could follow if Ramaphosa was removed from office. However, I want to be very clear and honest that in the DA's view, the actions of this last week and the fact that Minister Nkabane still sits in the cabinet, our view is that the President is failing to uphold his word to act against corruption, and unless he does so, he is going to make himself indistinguishable from the RET faction in his own party. Now, while the FedEx decided not to table a motion of no confidence at this stage, it is clear that the DA is in the process of losing confidence in the President's ability to act as a leader, not only of the ANC, but of the GNU, of which we are the second largest component.
I lost that confidence in 2018.
I do want to take a moment to explain to citizens what this process involves, should it materialize in future.
Is he threatening a future?
At every instance where President Ramaphosa has chosen to protect corruption accused within his own ranks while treating his coalition partners with contempt, he has sought to justify these actions by hiding behind something called presidential prerogative. He used the power, the fact that the Constitution gives the President certain powers as a blanket excuse to take action against honest and hard-working members of the executive, while shielding those like Nkabane and others implicated in corruption and mismanagement. It seems that the ANC has never asked themselves the question about where this prerogative arises from in the first place. The President only has this prerogative because his partners in the government of national unity, without whose votes in Parliament, he would have been reduced to being a one-term president.
Then leave.
Unlike the ANC suggestion that this prerogative is some form of God-given right, it was only conferred temporarily on President Ramaphosa, the leader of a party with barely 40% support among South Africans
There's a party with 21%.
by the very parties in the GNU, including the Democratic Alliance. More specifically, without the DA's numbers in Parliament, President Ramaphosa would never have had such prerogative in the first place. And what was ours, given by acting in good faith, is ours to take away when shown bad faith. And if the ANC fails to course correct, the federal executive will seriously considering exercising our constitutional prerogative by tabling a motion of no confidence in the president.
But you're not man enough to do it.
I want to speak directly now to South Africans. Last year, you all voted in your numbers to reconstitute government and set our country on a new path.
Mostly people stayed away.
The DA honored your wishes and your intentions by ensuring that the statement of intent that formed the GNU was honored. We love South Africa, and we work against tremendous odds every single day to act in the best interests of all South Africans. If this statement of intent had actually been implemented and honored, the national government would by now be charting the course of reform and economic growth that voters wanted. However, because the ANC has failed to honor the agreement they signed, they continue to shield and protect corruption. Our withdrawal and mobilization against the national dialogue, as well as our opposition against the budgets of corruption-accused ministers, is the first in a series of possible steps that are now on the table in an attempt to fix the GNU to align with the mandate that you have given all of us in the 2024 election. If the ANC wants to kick the DA out for fighting against corruption, well, so be it. But as long as ANC members implicated in corruption remain as members of the executive, misleading Parliament and committing other acts of malfeasance, the DA will not support their departmental budgets in Parliament, and we will not participate in the national dialogue. And if the ANC does not urgently change the way that it engages with its coalition partners, that we can fight corruption and start growing our economy and servicing the people of South Africa with good, clean, accountable government that delivers, well, then they imperil the very future of our country and our people.
Oh, gosh.
From the inception,
nauseating,
of the beginning of the GNU, the DA has always acted in the best interests of South Africa.
Yeah, but they're not playing by the rules, buddy.
It's now time that President Ramaphosa and the ANC do the same. I thank you.
Okay, anybody else coming? That was so pathetic, so weak. They're going to do nothing.
John. Colleagues, I will be handling the question session. We're going to take it in sets of 3. Please, when you are recognized, state your name, the media outlet that you represent, and I will then decide which of the panel members will handle the questions. I've got 3 hands here. The first hand was over there, Paul.
Good afternoon, Paul Vecchiato from Bloomberg. The departmental votes in the budget. If those departmental budget votes don't go through, does the whole national budget then not pass? And secondly, does this mean that government spending goes down to 10% of the previous years? So, and I think that happens around about the 27th of July. So could you just give us an assessment of what would happen if the DA votes against those departmental budgets? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Paul. Kevin Brandt.
Good afternoon, Kevin Brandt from ENCA. I just want to know from the DA, would a more impactful move not have been to leave the GNU? Because what if the sentiment from South Africans out there is that we actually back the national dialogue?
Yep.
Thank you.
Good question.
Thank you very much. Vuyo?
It's the same question, Vuyo Mvogo, Newsroom Africa. It's the same question asked differently. Why was it not a consideration to get out of the GNU completely?
Good question.
Thank you very much.
Propaganda
We'll take
Newsroom Africa.
the next round of questions after John has answered these ones. We'll get through to everybody. I promise you. There's such a lot of hands here. So
Helen looks like she wants to spit bullets. Look at Helen Zilla.
Thank you very much, Paul. We won't be voting against the globular budget, and I think that is as a result of the fact that we want to ensure that delivery proceeds for the people of South Africa. But those individual budget votes where ministers are severely compromised and sitting at the top of those departments will obviously have to find other ways to get those budgets passed. The entire schedule will be put. If votes aren't, individual budget department votes aren't passed, they've got to go back to committee level and have to have a process that follows if they're not there. But again, exactly with DORA this week, we decided that absolutely it was important that we put South Africa's interests first, and that's why we supported the DORA going through that, despite the fact that we had been treated with the way that we had. No, a more impactful way would not have been to leave the government of national unity, because that would have opened South Africa up to the coalition of chaos and destruction.
What a nonsense.
And would have led very clearly to more disastrous consequences for South Africa.
Stop pushing this false narrative.
I think that the national dialogue has already been met with a great deal of skepticism, and I think that the general public, a month after being told that they potentially had a 2% VAT increase because there wasn't enough money in the fiscus, and then have had to bear the cuts that have seen in the subsequent budget tabled, are frankly outraged that despite all of this, 740 million rand has been proposed for a national dialogue. I think that many of the foundations themselves have expressed deep concern around that. And I think that people need to understand that we can have as many dialogues as we want in South Africa. Goodness knows, we've spent the last 30 years having endless dialogues. What people now want to see is implementation and action, and people want to see those responsible for corruption being held accountable, because service delivery cannot happen if you have corrupt individuals at the apex. It's
not just about service delivery, for good Lord.
It is simply not going to happen. Everything then gets turned into a feeding frenzy for the connected few. And if you look at the uncomfortable questions that Minister Whitfield, Deputy Minister Whitfield, had been raising around things like the Transformation Fund, things like the IDC board, and also the way in which he has been significantly sidelined in the lottery.
Compare this to Trump.
Very clear why he was actually removed when people have committed far more serious acts of that. Vuyo, no, we don't. We've said to South Africans when we went into the GNU that we're here for the best interests of South Africa. We do not believe that it is in the best interests of South Africa for the current GNU to collapse and for a coalition of chaos or corruption.
There's no coalition of chaos.
Stop lying. The feeding frenzy that would then result from MK or the EFF getting into office and other parties
surrender
would
monkey
be significant. It also, if this government was to fall, would cause significant economic damage to the Republic of South Africa.
July 9th will cause
to our currency when the last turbulence occurred, and I don't think it's fair to South Africans to put them through it. However, the ball is in the President's court and the ANC's court. If they want to take a strong stance against us and want to stop us standing against corruption, well, they must fire us from the government of national unity. The President has made a big deal this week about his prerogative. If he feels that we've done something wrong and that standing up against corruption is something that deserves punishment, well, he must exercise that prerogative.
July 9th, it's all going to collapse.
Thank you, John. Next round, in front, you was a hand. I'll move over here. You'll be next.
It's Arthur from Heart FM. John, you've mentioned several times that the statement of intent which was signed by the parties last year has been undermined. Do you think perhaps maybe the GNU partners still have to use that same document? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's actually good questions for a change. Good questions to the press
Good
for once.
afternoon. It's Nkosinathi Shazi from Power FM News.
I know him.
My question is, I have two questions. I want to speak about the identity of the DA in the government of national unity. Now, this is not the first time the DA has made threats. The Bella bill was passed. You guys made threats. The NHI, the expropriation bill. But you guys still remain committed to the GNU. And I hate to play devil's advocate, but does the DA need the GNU, or is it the other way around?
No!
You guys have moved from the opposition benches to a place of influence. You have 6 ministers, deputy ministers, and you're making a difference in South Africa. So why are you still in the GNU and not leaving? Is it because it is also beneficial to you guys? And secondly, my second question, have you guys thought of a replacement for Mr. Whitfield? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Abram.
That was brilliant.
Bobby of the SABC. The presidency in a statement said that the president won't be attending the symposium in Spain due to political, what was the word? Political events unfolding in the country. Has the presidency made any contact with the DA leadership about a possible meeting? Because it sounds like he's sitting and waiting for something big to happen this weekend.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you very much to Heart FM. I think you ask a very good question. One of the problems that we have in South Africa is the very limited time that we have to be able to put coalitions together. And so the statement of intent was the best that we could do in that short particular time frame. Obviously, what you would have preferred to have is a much longer coalition document. When you look at coalition agreements in other countries where you have similar coalitions, these documents run into hundreds of pages. And they set out every eventuality and they deal with a number of mechanisms. I think it's worth saying that I think that the intent of the statement of intent is correct, but it would be great if that was being honored. It is repeatedly violated. It says a lot about where we're at, that a year later, we still have no conflict resolution mechanism, that the clearinghouse in the GNU has no terms of reference, and that despite repeated attempts or promises that we were going to have Bosparats and get-togethers to bring cabinet together, to bring the leaders of the parties together, not one of those has taken place yet.
Wah 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 wah. Okay, sorry, I've just got to interrupt the haggard-looking John Steenhuisen for a moment. I've just got confirmation, ladies and gentlemen, from more South Africans whom I know who were in the process of coming over as refugees who have arrived in the United States yesterday. More arriving. As I said, people are coming each and every day, and it's not to any fanfare as South Africa gets drained of its human capital, while this nonsense standing in front of a podium talking cock, making empty threats, circling the drain, another refugee came. So, wah, 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 wah. Let me give you real news. South Africans are leaving South Africa. South Africans are coming to America under the refugee program. Another family arrived yesterday. I can confirm that 100%. Thank you, John. We really appreciate what you're saying. Not.
To have the information shared with them before they had to learn about it in the media. And that is not respectful and it is not right. And so I would urge that if this is going to continue, that these items, particularly clause 19.3, need to be taken seriously by the ANC particularly, and that the statement of intent needs to be respected in both the letter and spirit, and not simply treated as an obstacle. And so we would like to see that codified. I believe the GNU needs the DA. I think that that was very clear from recent interactions with international bodies, and the DA has always gone out to bat for the GNU, whether it's in the Oval Office in Washington, whether it's with international investor conferences, whether it's dealing with our counterparts abroad. And we have always put the GNU's interests first because we believe it is the best vehicle to deliver meaningful change for the people of South Africa. We've had a number of setbacks along the way, but you mentioned Bella. It is a DA minister now, Siviwe Gaqube, is doing the regulations on Bella.
It's still
you
the law.
mentioned the NHI. We were able to get through the medium-term development plan, the more pernicious aspects of the NHI, including the collapse into a single medical fund, removed from the medium-term development plan. And so I think that the DA has had a number of successes within the government of national unity, and that the contribution being made by ministers and deputy ministers who work jolly hard every day under very difficult circumstances shows that South Africa benefits from having the DA in the GNU. I think it has done a huge boost for investor confidence, and I certainly think that if one looks at the response and the sentiment from business, from industry, and from Labour, that the government has benefited from having the DA within it. Abram, sorry, I can't read my handwriting. What was your question again?
Yeah, that's how I am.
Yeah.
Have you had any?
Oh, no. And this is part of the problem, I might add. We're in the midst of a GNU crisis. It would have cost the president absolutely nothing to say, look, I'm dealing with the following people. Or have done a omnibus shuffle when he removed Deputy Minister Whitfield. But what it now appears is that the sole priority of the president over the course of the last while has been to take action against Deputy Minister Whitfield 5 months after the so-called transgression happened, and with no, in the interim, sign to me or to others that there was a major problem. If we can't pick up the phone and have these types of conversations with each other, or provide an opportunity for us to ventilate these issues, instead of being simply summoned to a meeting and told this is what's going to happen, and then asking for 24 hours to process it through my own party, and having that completely upended, how on earth are we going to have discussions about some of the bigger and pressing issues that face us? And this speaks to the heart about the respect that needs to be shown. It cannot be that the ANC behaves as if they got a majority in the last election. They do not govern with a majority. They govern as part of a coalition of which the DA is the second largest party. And without whose votes, it's probably unlikely that President Ramaphosa would be serving a second term. We put our trust and faith in his commitment to clean, accountable government and to a spirit of cooperation.
There is no commitment.
That has been observed in the breach continuously over the course of the last year. And it simply cannot continue. The people of South Africa voted for change. They did not vote for more of the same. They did not vote for more of the Zuma years where the corrupt and those responsible for maladministration are shielded and protected. They did not vote for poor service delivery. They did not vote for ministers to treat Parliament with the contempt shown by Minister Nkabane, and taking people in South Africa for fools that there were these committees set up to ensure that these cadres were deployed to the various seaters, where no doubt they would be prepared to carry on with their activities that they have been indulging in for the last 10 years. That is not change. That is more of the same. And South Africans voted for change, not more of the same. And as long as the DA is there, we're going to fight to ensure that the change happens. And that starts by putting pressure on the ANC and President Ramaphosa to clean up. It's no use sweeping outside the DA's doorstep if you're not prepared to sweep outside your own doorstep.
ANC light. Can we get Helen?
Thank you very much, John. Colleagues, we are going to run out of time and we all want to be there for the rugby. Before I give the last round, I see there's a lot of hands. I'm going to give the people that has not asked questions yet first to bite at the cherry, but I would like to just ask Helen to also give a few comments. Thank you very much.
Here we go, Helen.
Yes, thank you very much. I just want to make a few comments about the statement of intent, because I, as you know, led the negotiating team of the Democratic Alliance in those negotiations. And the reason that we had to move so quickly was not because there was a parliamentary deadline for the convening of Parliament as some arbitrary date.
It's a 2-week law.
It is because the Constitution of South Africa says that Parliament must be convened and a president must be elected 2 weeks after the election. So that was an unmovable deadline. And the bad faith of the ANC began in those negotiations. And in fact, they changed the entire draft the night before the parliamentary sitting.
It's because they're fraudulent. So why are you in a coalition?
What were our non-negotiables? We did a lot of compromising, as you always have to when you're putting together a coalition. But the one thing that we were absolutely determined was unmovable was the mechanism of decision-making in the new Government of National Unity, which is largely a coalition government. And we had agreed that that method of decision-making would be by sufficient consensus. And the president, the night before, in his own office, tried to whittle down the definition of sufficient consensus, and we stood firm and were prepared not to vote for him if that clause was whittled down. Well, frankly, in the interim, the ANC has ignored every single clause of the statement of intent. We insisted that it was signed by Fikile and Balula before we agreed to vote for the president on the 14th of June last year. But frankly, that signature isn't worth the paper it's written on. Clause 18 says that all decisions in the Government of National Unity will be taken by consensus. And if you can't get consensus, it will be by sufficient consensus. And then under Clause 19, there is a clear definition of what sufficient consensus entails. There's supposed to be a mechanism to apply sufficient consensus. It has never been implemented. Instead, the ANC, in bad faith, tried to put together a clearinghouse mechanism which turned out to be nothing other than an attempt to get around the sufficient consensus clause. And it was a complete farce. All of the legislation to which I think Nkosinathi referred to was actually passed in the 6th Parliament.
Rome is burning,
before we got
Helen.
into the Government of National Unity. So that limited our leverage. But on other things, we have real leverage, and we have the most leverage in Parliament, which is the leverage the voters gave us. And we will use that leverage, as we have done on the VAT increase, and as we will do on the votes of corrupt ministers. And obviously on the complete and utter waste of money, as John has said, the 700 million rand, which is actually a cover for the ANC's 2026 election campaign. And we will have no part of it.
Ooh.
Thank you very much, Helen. The last 3 questions, I'm going to start here with you.
Questions for Helen, please.
Just get the mic.
Rome is burning, Helen.
Vali. Lindsay Dentinger, Eyewitness News. If I can just rewind a bit to Andrew Whitfield's sacking. Is the DA saying that all transgressions are not equal if you feel that this move was too drastic? And correct me if I'm wrong, was there not perhaps a cabinet directive stating that members of the executive should not be travelling to the US when the tensions were at its height? And Andrew didn't seem to have trouble getting the president to approve other international trips that he went on. So was this not perhaps
Good question.
A sign that the president didn't want him to travel? And who took that decision to send him on that particular trip? Thank you.
Thank you
Good
very
questions.
much. There was Jason.
Thank you, Vali. Jason from News 24. Just one question. How do you foresee working in the GNU with the very people that you call delinquents and corrupt? And then I think the question on the replacement of Andrew Whitfield hasn't been answered yet. Do you foresee that position being replaced with another DA member, given that there were 6 deputy minister positions and 6 minister positions? Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. The last question there, right next to Jason.
Yes, Joseph Musia from JTP Media. My question to the DA is the issue of not going to the boycotting the national dialogue. I mean, in the grander scheme of things, it's not a constitutional mechanism or anything like that. It's just a I don't see it being a significant, having a significant impact on the way on what is happening in the country at the moment. My big question is, when I came here, I was expecting that the DA, for me that was the big news, that the DA was going to be withdrawing from. But if you are not continuing, and the ANC sees this as just another DA complaint that is not going to lead to anything, is this action significant enough? I mean, for me, like everybody else, it came as a surprise that the president decided to take this particular action against Mr. Whitfield. And you are still prepared to sit in the same cabinet with these people. Yep. If Mr. Whitfield had not been sacked,
exactly,
you wouldn't have been taking any of these.
Exactly.
Even with the complaints that you are talking about against all these other ministers that have been accused of corruption. The point is,
what's the breaking point?
Why is it that the DA is not taking a stronger action in the interest of the whole country, not just of itself? Because it looks like you want to still stay in the government of national unity because it benefits the DA to be there.
Yep, 100%.
Thank you very much. That was the last question. I'm going to hand over to John.
A good
we
question.
Want to watch the rugby as well, Alex.
Stop talking about the rugby, Billy.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. And I think that where's Lindsay gone?
She's voicing. She's got a deadline. So
shall I ask her last then? So hopefully she can come back in. Jason, yes, we will be submitting a replacement name, and that will obviously be a matter for our federal executive to take through the process. It is a DA position. And once again, the fact that we got 6 ministers and 6 deputy ministers is also another example about how we put South Africa first. We proportionally are entitled to a lot more than that. And yet, it is another matter we had to swallow at that particular time in order to make sure that we got a GNU that worked so we could get South Africa moving forward. And so I fundamentally want to prove the point and repeat what I've said, that at every step of the way, we've taken action to ensure that the coalition of chaos and coalition of corruption, or the doomsday coalition, does not happen in South Africa.
I regret calling it that now.
And that leaves me to Joseph's
stole
question.
That from me.
And I'm sorry, Joseph, I hope you haven't put your front page together already, that you're disappointed that we're not leaving the GNU. But one of the reasons we went into the GNU was to play a part in rescuing South Africa and to ensuring that we prevented a doomsday coalition. And I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, and as soon as night follows day, that a coalition differently constituted is going to either include the EFF or MK, or a combination of the both of them, or it is going to be a minority coalition with all of its instability and uncertainty that goes with it, or it could be a little coalition with a 2 or 3 seat slim margin, where you're going to have to make sure that every sitting, every single day, every single committee meeting, make sure that you've got all of your people there. And that ain't no way to run a government, I can tell you that. And we know one thing from the course of the last 20 years I've been in Parliament, that even on days of motions of no confidence and the like, that the governing party wasn't able to get all of its people into Parliament. And everything then on an order paper becomes a backwards and forwards, like we saw on the VAT issue. And that is also no way to run a stable government. And so the best option for South Africa remains the GNU in its current configuration, but things have to change. They cannot stay the same as they are. And the ANC needs to start realizing that we are part of a coalition. And being part of a coalition means that you show respect to your individuals. Now, I have shown nothing but respect to the president throughout the term of the GNU.
Not the ultimatum, that wasn't respectful.
We will continue to do so. But it is time that that respect has started to be repaid. I can think of no more remarkably disrespectful thing to do to a fellow leader than to undermine them in their own party. And the actions taken around the firing of Andrew Whitfield could only have been served to undermine me in my own party. Now, if I had done that to the president, I imagine I would have received a furious reaction. If I'd undercut him in the eyes of his own party, it would have received a serious action. We need to understand that we are all leaders. Yes, the ANC may be the largest party in the coalition, but it doesn't have 51%. The DA has 22% in the coalition. We also are not the largest party, but we deserve to be treated, and our leaders deserve to be treated with the same respect that is expected of us to show the President of the Republic of South Africa. And that there must be an understanding that it is through collaboration, cooperation, and mutual respect that we will make these things work. And I am frankly tired of being disrespected and shown the remarkable disrespect that the DA is and other coalition partners are shown on a far too regular basis. And so people must treat the DA the way they would like to be treated.
His feelings are
and the like. And I've shown as well very clearly that we are coalition partners that can be relied on. When we say we're going to do something, we do it. Joseph, I would also say that South Africa is better off because the DA is there. And I can guarantee you that your pension, your investments are much better off in an environment where there is confidence in the South African economy. Having traveled to the US, and I don't need to show you what Mr. Trump showed the world on his screen there, if that is what's going to form part of the government of the Republic of South Africa, I can assure you that international partners are going to turn their back on South Africa in a big way. I love this country.
That won't happen.
My 3 daughters and my family are South Africans. We hold no passport for any other country, and that is why I've dedicated the better part of my life to serving South Africa,
to getting a
and
check
to make
from
sure
Parliament.
that I can build a better place for my children and the children of all South Africans in a country that provides opportunity for more people, provides a better future to our yesterday. And that is what has got me out of bed in politics in very difficult times, including on a Saturday morning and including just before the rugby, to get up and try and make a difference. That is what I and millions of other hundreds of other public representatives do every single day, because we want our country to succeed. I'm not going to sit back and watch the country that I love be completely destroyed by demagogues and those who seek to divide us.
That's what
those
you're doing
who
now.
thrive on hatred, those who regard killing people as a solution to problems rather than dialogue and talking together. And that is what drives the DA, and that is why we're not going to walk out on the GNU, and we're not going to walk out on South Africa, and we're not going to walk out on the people who are looking to us to show the leadership that's required in this country to get it moving forward. However, we need to then genuinely focus on the things that are going to get our country moving forward. And that cannot be the ways of the past. Corruption, maladministration, pilfering of public money, disrespect shown to Parliament, and all of these other things that have become simply par for the course over the last 20 years in South Africa. We need to change, and the GNU needs to lead that particular change. And so we will stay in the GNU as long as we believe we can be part of that change. However, we should not be tested to the point where we will have to make a decision. And that is why I've said, we voted for the GNU and we voted for Mr. Ramaphosa because his public pronouncements were that he was committed to cleaning up government, to fighting against the corrupt, to implementing the findings of the state capture inquiry, to ensuring that those who are responsible for state capture are brought to justice and held accountable. And it is that distinguished him from the others in his party who belong to other factions. But the more he protects, the more he obfuscates, and the more that those who are guilty of new and fresh transgressions, as well as held unaccountable for past acts of omission and commission, remain unpunished or untouched, he becomes increasingly less distinguishable from that other faction. And that may well tip the scales in the future.
He's describing
But for now,
2018.
we will continue to put the interests of South Africans first.
No, you won't. You put DA
However,
first.
we will be taking these steps in Parliament, and they are significant steps against these particular budgets. And we must not dismiss how important the government and the ANC regard this national dialogue. But again, I say to civil society, you need to play your role now in helping to help apply the pressure, and that this dialogue should not proceed until such time as those who are guilty of corruption and maladministration and those who have not lived up to the standards of the ministerial handbook and other are held accountable in the same way that Andrew Whitfield has been done. Lindsay, I've saved your question because you were outside the room. I believe there are different scales of transgressions, and I believe that there are ways of dealing with different types of transgressions. Taking in South African Airways, South African Air Force plane, and taking a bunch of ANC colleagues on a jolly when you're the Minister of Defence is an abuse of power in probably the most egregious way.
It's criminal.
Yet that warranted a 3-month salary dock and a public admonishment by the President. Andrew Whitfield, 10 days before the intended trip, wrote to the President. He requested an ability to travel, not for official travel. He travelled for a party function, as many ANC people travel for party functions regularly around the world, in order to meet with some of the people that we had been building a relationship with in the United States, in order to ensure that we do not end up being kicked out of AGOA and ensure that South Africa's agenda remained firmly on the plate. There was no meetings at the White House or any of those, and there was no way Andrew Whitfield was going in an official capacity. He was there as a member of the DA. It was a party-funded trip. It was not paid for by government. And despite following up repeatedly for those days, he never got a response. To this day, he's never received a response. That is not only rude, it is unprofessional. And I noticed that Alvin Boertes this week thought he would be clever by publishing the fact that he wrote and the very next day got permission. Well, how is it that ANC deputy ministers write to the President for permission, they get an answer within 24 hours, but a DA minister, a deputy minister, has still not received an answer to that? Had the President written back and said no, I could quite clearly understand. I also recommended to the President in my interaction with him that perhaps there are other mechanisms that we could use, either a public admonishment, perhaps a docking of pay. I even said we would look at shuffling portfolios, which is the same remedy that was used for Minister Similani when her allegations around the VBS Bank originally broached. She was moved from justice to housing. I suggested perhaps we could, if there was a problem with him in that particular position, we could move him then. But there was an insistence that he now had to be fired. And I don't think it's fair that you try and earn tough guy credentials by going after a DA member when you're not prepared to be the tough guy and going after your own members who are breaking the Executive Ethics Code, the Executive Ethics Act, and who through acts of omission and commission cost the South African public a great deal in terms of money. Thank you very much.
Is that it?
Thank you very much, John. Before I'm going to ask my colleague Karabo to close this meeting, I would just like to give a few words to our federal chairperson, Dr. Ivan Meyer, as well. Dr. Meyer.
What was he going to say?
Thank you, Willie, and good afternoon, everybody. I see that many came here with the expectation
11 o'clock is the rugby.
That we will leave the GNU. That's the preface of many of your questions.
Of course.
Well, there's a reason why you came here with that expectation, because for the last 30 years, you had a governing party that put their party first. Today, it is different because we are putting South Africa first and not the party first.
That's not true.
Today, we are also honoring the electoral mandate of the 29th of May of last year, because we are ending one-party dominance. And last year, in the election, we are honoring a mandate. During our manifesto, we said, rescue South Africa. And all of you know that in the GNU, the Democratic Alliance and all the parties committed themselves to 3 key priorities. Number 1, to build an inclusive economy.
I thought we were going to get to rugby.
Now, all of you will know that
how rude is that?
Will destroy and is destroying an inclusive economic growth.
How rude is that?
The second priority of the GNU is to reduce poverty.
Look at this idiot.
And I think all of you will agree that corruption will increase poverty and not decrease poverty.
Guy takes the microphone off the stand.
The GNU is committed to building a capable state. Corruption is destroying the pillars of a capable state. And therefore, we cannot sit here and simply see a continuation of corruption, because corruption violates the 3 priorities of the government of national unity. And as you have heard, we will withdraw from the national dialogue because it is nothing but an electoral campaign. 700 million will be abused by the ANC in the election, as Helen Zille has indicated, and therefore we cannot continue taking part in the national dialogue, because that is also corruption, and we will not take part in any corruption. And Andrew Whitfield was removed because he was exposing corruption, and that is the reality, and that is our position here today. I thank you.
How rude was that, to rip the microphone off from Newsroom Africa? Pathetic.
Thank you, Dr. Mayor. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ms. Zille, and thank you, Vili. Colleagues, that brings us to the end of our presser today. I want to take this opportunity to thank each and every one of you for availing yourselves here. And for those of you who are watching online, thank you. We'll chat again.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Thank you. I had won the money.
Well, that was pathetic. I mean, absolutely pathetic. That wasn't even sad. That was pathetic. Wow, so many notes here. Sorry, folks. I was wearing glasses because, by the way, I have another update, something actually more useful than that waste of time. Not only did one family come, and it wasn't yesterday, it was earlier in the week. I misread the message. They confirmed earlier in the week a family came from South Africa. They traveled with another family who went to a different part of the United States, thousands of miles away. So, yeah. Yeah, so more South Africans arrive in the U.S. this week. Let's see. So they're not leaving. So John Steenhuisen teed this up as if they were leaving the GNU. We're leaving the GNU. He didn't say that, but it pretty much it got along that way. We're leaving, everything. This, only to say we are not going to participate in the national dialogue. I never expect you to participate in national dialogue anyway. It's an ANC fundraiser. Seriously? Wow, that's the big news they had. They're not going to participate in that. Give me a freaking break. Oh, my goodness. And they're not going to vote for the departmental budgets for those who are corruption accused. Ooh, that'll scare the ANC. Wow. And once again, they're running the tired narrative that many South Africans fell for last year, and some in my chat are falling for too. If we leave the GNU, that will lead to the coalition of chaos. No, it won't. No, it won't, ladies and gentlemen. That's just nonsense. Utter nonsense. The MK will not join this coalition. Not going to happen. They have 14% of the vote. If they join, they can govern together, but they're not going to join. So that's 14% of the vote the ANC can't get. They also can't get the 22% that the DA has. That's 36% of the vote they cannot get. Then the Freedom Front Plus has 2%, okay? That's 38%. The IFP, we'll see what the IFP does if they stay in it. But the math doesn't work. The IFP will not stay in the coalition if EFF joins it, which means the IFP would leave. The IFP would then go, and now we're up to 42% of the vote that the ANC doesn't have. That means the most it can get is 58%. But they're not going to get all that. They're going to get themselves, no MK, and no EFF. So they cannot get there. You take the EFF out, another 10%, they're not going to get it. That means that's 52%. It's mathematically impossible for the ANC to govern without the DA. And the DA is too stupid to realize this. And they're too stupid to realize this now for going on over a year. And for the people who keep saying it's just the coalition of chaos, not going to happen. I did propose that as a possibility, but I explained why that would never happen, and I did my pre-election analysis, and I stand by that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the Democratic Alliance can forever be known as the Bend-Over Bandits now. They are the Bend-Over Bandits. And look, I have to say, this was the best session of questions I've ever heard from South African journalists, ever. Only one stupid question, that was the first one. The rest of the questions were brilliant. How do you keep working with corrupt cabinet ministers? That's a good question, which John Steenhuisen didn't answer. And he keeps talking about service delivery. It's not about service delivery. It's about corruption. It's about ineptitude. It's about racism. See, John Steenhuisen, the DA, think this is all about service delivery. They think they're going to win the nation by pointing out the failure of the service delivery. Well, we all know the ANC's failed in infrastructure, trash removal, policing, water. And they still rule. You're not going to get this with focusing on service delivery. It can only be one part of your campaign. You have to talk about how they've destroyed the country. Wow. So John Steenhuisen said that if the GNU collapses, there'll be significant economic damage. Nope. See, this is the problem. John Steenhuisen and the DA are sleepwalking through reality. Ladies and gentlemen, South Africa's economy is about to go off a cliff. On July 9th, unless President Trump cuts them some slack, your economy will nosedive. Come October, hundreds of thousands of jobs will disappear in South Africa. Why? Because they have not negotiated with the United States to lower the tariffs. The tariffs, which were at nothing, rose to 31% and suspended to 10%. So you've been paying 10%, which is killing South African producers. But that rises on July 9th to 31%. And nobody's buying anything from South Africa. Nothing. Except maybe some Springbok jerseys. That's it. Your most important trading partner, $20 billion in trade. A trade surplus. Hundreds of thousands of jobs directly tied to it. And that's before the United States even takes the trouble to sanction or punish South Africa. That's not even punishing South Africa. But John Steenhuisen thinks that if they leave the GNU, it's going to affect the economy. The economy is going to come crashing down while you're part and parcel of it and you're too dumb to see it. Wow. DA sellouts. Yep, that's what somebody said. Jolly hard. Did he really say that? Jolly hard. I thought that was hilarious. The ANC has operated in bad faith since the moment that they discussed this. They've never operated in good faith. And the DA keep acting, the DA is talking about the ANC's in bad faith. The DA are abused puppies. That's what they are. They're the little puppies yapping who've been kicked and smacked, and they still come back for love and affection from the ANC and the government national unity. Unbelievable. 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 Jeez. Hang on. Oh, boy. I just sent Ronaldo a message. Jeez. Wow. And I think the best question that was asked here is one I've asked and I've said for a long time. They keep talking about they're doing this for South Africa. They're doing this for South Africa. No, they're not. This is for the DA. The only path forward is to work with this government. No, everything they've done has been dishonest. Seriously. We have gone past the Rubicon. There's no turning back. The DA is wedded to the ANC. They're the ANC light. The best question was from Nkosi from Power FM. And Nkosi nailed this one. Does the DA need the GNU or does the GNU need the DA? The DA argues the GNU needs the DA. I argue that the DA needs the GNU. At least they think they need the GNU, but they don't. They don't. They could have started a new day in South Africa today by calling for a vote of no confidence. They didn't do that. They could have left the government national unity. They didn't do that. All they did is after this big ultimatum, they said, well, we're not going to be part of the national dialogue. Well, when were you going to be part of the national dialogue? It's stupid. So let me close the poll. There you go. Unbelievable. This is beyond the pale of stupid, folks. Bend over bandits. Yep. Bend over bandits. No, Nina, you don't understand the dynamics here. You do not understand the dynamics here at all. There's no way that this survives. The ANC cannot go into coalition with MK. MK are simply ANC members who hate the ANC. MK are ANC members who hate the ANC. They will eat that party from the inside. That's what was happening before they broke away. The radical economic transformation was undermining the ANC's government since 2018. No, I'm sorry, Nina. We have a fundamental disagreement on that. There will be no coalition between MK and ANC as long as Jacob Zuma is the leader of MK party. Not going to happen. Not going to happen. Watching the washing machine more than listening to John. Yeah, this all comes down to, at the end here, John's feelings were hurt. It's pretty clear that his feelings were hurt. He and the DA are being disrespected. Well, yeah. Yep. And what's this comment about, Whitfield going to the States to save AGOA? There's no saving AGOA. It doesn't exist. Why are South African politicians still so clueless this week talking about AGOA? AGOA is dead. It's June 28th. We have July, August, and September. 90 days, 93 days are left, 94 days in this fiscal year. There is no way a piece of legislation will be introduced at this stage when Congress goes into recess and become law by October 1st. It's not going to happen. AGOA is gone. It's dead. Why are you talking about AGOA as if you can still get in part? These people are so stupid, so clueless, so completely moronic. They have no idea how the U.S. government works, and they're talking to the U.S. government. It's unbelievable. It is unbelievable. I mean, I don't get... These are the people that you elected? My goodness, they're dumb as a box of rocks. Bend over bandits. Wow. Yeah. K. Janssen von Rensburg says, God help us. I agree. The point of no return, the ANC's arrogance won't shift, so the DA needs to let go. And yeah, exactly. The ANC's not going to adjust. Let's hear what Ramaphosa has to say. You know what Ramaphosa's doing now? He's sitting back in a lawn chair laughing as the little mouse that roared, John Steenhuisen, hello, hello, hippo, hippo, respect me, respect me. Good Lord. That's a good, by the way, if you're watching Germ Warfare, that's a good cartoon. The mouse that roared. Oh, Ronaldo just sent his viewers over. Wow. Wow, thank you for joining us. Yeah, so I'll see if I can't get Ronaldo over here real quick just to chat for a few minutes. I've sent him a message. Do a collab here if he wants to come up. Yeah, okay, hang on. All right, so let me get Ronaldo up here, folks. Let me set up a stream. I got to turn my camera off for just a moment, so hang on a second here. Zoom, I'll get it open here. All right, I got to turn my camera off, so be patient. This will take a moment. New meeting, okay. Okay, here we go. Hang on, folks.
Recording in progress.
There we go. Okay, let me get that link over to Ronaldo. Alrighty, where'd my WhatsApp go? There it is. Okay. Okay. All right, so Ronaldo should be able to join me here in just a minute. Okay, and I'll be back on the screen in just a second. Okay, I'm there, waiting for Ronaldo to join me. Should be coming over in a second. Let me get my earpiece out because otherwise we get reverb here. We don't reverb. Get the earpiece out. There he is. All right, cool beans. Meow. There he is, ladies and gentlemen, man, the myth, the nominee for Deputy Minister of Trade and Industry. It's once again back in the Democratic Alliance, Ronaldo Gos. What's going on, brother?
No, Chris, I just want to thank everybody at the DA for welcoming me back in.
Boy, John's feelings are hurt, man. The Bend Over Bandits are going to leave the national dialogue. Wow, that is such an impressive move.
Did you also have the same expression when you heard that? Because it was that weird hype. It was that
he
weird,
was so close, so close.
It was like I went like, yes. And believe it or not, to everybody, I really want the DA to be what the DA was because we need strong opposition. And it was like, okay, yeah, here we go. Yeah, oh, they're leaving the... And I'm like, I literally went like this.
Listen, I'm sure your chat was the same way. They're leaving. Yeah. They're leaving. They're going to do it. And I'm like, well, looks like they're leaving. Looks like they're leaving. So, man.
On my chat, what we had was we had a lot of people that had that emoji that, you know... everybody was like that. And then as soon as he announced it, you could just see swear words like, fuck off, and fuck off, and fuck and blah, blah. I'm like, oh, losers. It was crazy.
The best question was from Nkosi from Power FM. I actually know Nkosi.
Yes.
And he said, does the DA need the GNU or does the GNU need the DA? Oh, smack. I've asked that question before, but not in a press conference to John Steenhuisen. Whew.
Yeah. And then another great question that wasn't answered is, who decided that Andrew should go on that trip? Because, like I've said, and I'm sure that you've also figured it out, is that ultimately the federal executive dropped the ball again, because the ministerial handbook say that you should apply for leave 14 days before your trip. He applied 10 days before his trip, which means that Cyril didn't have to respond to him in that email because he didn't follow the rules when he emailed for permission to leave.
Yeah. Well, you know, again, it goes back to the hypocrisy of Mapisa Nkula and what she pulled, basically stealing South African aircraft and just got a reprimand for it, not sacked. And also, this is all nonsense. It's been 3 months since they made the trip. If he was going to be punished, it should have been done 2.5 months ago, not now.
But the ANC has always been who they are. The DA knows this for the last 31 years. They knew that they were creating an opportunity for the ANC to use it against them, and that's exactly what the ANC did. And that is why they're not even fighting for Andrew to be reinstated. They already have a replacement.
Yeah, that's the point that really needs to be put out here too. Once again, they throw a DA member under the bus. It's like the delegation. It's like Ronaldo, the delegation that went to Israel. Well, he wasn't DA, but it's like the delegation that went to Israel. The party approved them and sent them there. They're all facing disciplinary proceedings now because the DA was embarrassed. But they were sent there by the Democratic Alliance, and they're being punished for doing what the party told them. What a crockpot party, man! I'm telling you. And here's the other thing.
That's why I'm just so happy I'm not part of it anymore.
They're so hung up on this service delivery. It's not about service delivery. Service delivery is not there, and the ANC still rules in almost the entire country. That is not going to move the needle. You have to have a comprehensive argument here. But they keep falling back on this nonsense. And the thing I thought was hilarious here is that if the government national unity collapses, it'll be bad for the economy. Dude, you were in America. The tariffs are going from 10%, they were zero, they're going from 10% to 31% in less than 2 weeks. And you're completely oblivious to it. You're going to lose 1 million jobs. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, they didn't mention the 9th of July, that's the deadline. Nope. And then, of course, you know, just the cherry on top is how the DA is complaining about the ANC not adhering to, you know, the agreement. Like, I mean, guys, how much more do you need the ANC to show you who they are? And then, of course, the boogeyman, you know, if we leave the GNU...
Coalition of doom, chaos.
Yeah, no. And also, two things. Firstly, we know for a fact that the ANC and MK will not form a GNU together because the ANC is too scared that the Mkhonto Wesizwe does well and move votes over. Yep. Secondly, there is no opposition in South Africa at the moment because everything that the EFF and Mkhonto Wesizwe wanted passed has already been passed.
Yeah.
So we don't have opposition. And the DA is not performing because look at it's been 1 year of the GNU. What have they achieved other than making it very easy or making it a lot easier for people to and quicker to get their passports to leave South Africa? That's the only thing that's improved.
Yeah, no, and everything that's happened. Look, I understand that NHI and EWC were passed in a previous parliament, and so the DA could take that excuse. But the bottom line here is that, as I've said all along, the DA has no influence whatsoever with or over Ramaphosa because he signed EWC, didn't have to sign it. He pushed forward NHI. He signed Bella, didn't have to sign it. Now this black tax is out there, and then the only thing that the DA stood up for is the 4% white men in labor. In management positions. That's the only thing. They're taking that to court. No, they're feckless. They keep talking about the ANC operating in bad faith. They've done that since the outset. Helen Zille even admitted it. They tried to change the terms before they even came to an agreement. This is nonsense. The ANC is here's the DA, and this is the sketch I need to get a cartoonist to make. Here is Cyril Ramaphosa sitting with his hippopotamus body in a lawn chair, sucking a Mai Tai in the sun with a parasol over him, while the mighty mouse that roared John Steenhuisen is on the floor yapping at him. Show me respect! Show me respect!
What I want to say, like the one thing I disagree with you on, I mean, I agree with you because technically it's correct. Technically, there wasn't a lot that the DA could do about the Bella Act, the Expropriation Act, and NHI. But why then did they lie to their voters and campaign right up until the election to say, stop the Bella Act, stop the Expropriation Act, stop the NHI? Why did they lie to their voters during the election if they knew that there was nothing they could do about it? So even though I hear you that they aren't responsible, they still lied to their voters to make it act like they could do.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying not responsible. What I'm saying is that they can make the excuse that it was in a previous parliament. I'm not. They can make that excuse, and some idiots will believe that. They could have done something. They could have left the GNU over Bella. They should have left the GNU over Bella or over EWC. First off, this is what I would have done.
Wait. Can I just answer a comment? Napoleon Dynamite says, while Ronaldo was part of them, he should answer his own question. As I've been stating very clearly, the DA before 2024's election and the DA after the 2024 election is vastly different. And they could have stopped they could have stopped these things, because ultimately what it needed was a signature from Cyril Ramaphosa to become law. And if they had any influence in the GNU, they could have prevented Cyril Ramaphosa from signing that, and that was the plan. So there's your answer right there.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's all right. No, what I was going to say is that this is what they should have done. See, here's the thing that no one's talking about. We got criminal activity by the ANC. They've moved on from the Pala Pala. He's never been investigated criminally for that. The Parliament said he wasn't guilty. Well, he wasn't guilty of ethics violations for Parliament. Maybe not, but that's not criminally not guilty. So that whole thing's been swept under the carpet. But let's forget about that. Let's talk about the fact that Cyril Ramaphosa actually signed expropriation on that compensation in December, and then announced it after the 30-day window, which members of parliament could object to it. That is criminal. It's a violation of the Constitution. He should have had a vote of no confidence right then and there for that violation, because he intentionally did that so that they couldn't get 1/3 of the members of parliament together, which they could have gotten if Musi Maimani had not been, if he played along, and a couple others, they could have got the 130 plus votes they needed to get that vote. That goes directly to the Constitutional Court, and they look at it and go, is this in accord with the Constitution? And it could have been struck down by the court right there. But they didn't do it, and they've just let it go. They're completely clueless. They're just as bad as the ANC. They're just hoodwinking South Africans, or they're very stupid, or it's a combination of the two.
And then also remember, added to that is there's a lot of people now that don't really understand how a political system works in a political party. It's all good and well to blame only John Steenhuisen, but you would be wrong, because it's far bigger than John Steenhuisen. John has to report to the federal executive of the party. The federal executive is the ones that listen to what the leader's got to say, and the leader has some influence, but ultimately the leader can be overruled by the federal executive, and that consists of Helen Zille, Ivan Meyer. It consists of provincial leaders, including Andrew Whitfield. The federal executive dropped the ball here. The federal executive should never ever have sent Andrew Whitfield. Instead, they should have sent other parliamentarians that weren't in the cabinet, because the moment they sent a deputy minister, that meant that is now Cyril Ramaphosa's area, that he can do whatever he wants, and that's exactly what he did there. So the DA got played. Simple as that.
Well, Ivan Meyer said two things which are just laughable. And I'm not picking on Ivan Meyer, but these are comical. He said,
I tuned out before, so tell me.
Okay, he said that the DA is ending one-party dominance. No, you're not. EWC, Bella, NHI, Black Tax. There's no end to one-party dominance. You've reinforced it. The ANC does what they want when they want, and the sacking of Andrew Whitfield is proof of that. And then they say, John Steenhuisen said that, but so did Ivan Meyer at the end. He wrapped up. He said, we have a mandate. You don't have a mandate. You have 22% of the vote. And trying to tell me, like John Steenhuisen keeps going, the voters spoke. The voters spoke by not going. The turnout was abysmal. Less than a third of the population who's eligible went to vote. Exactly.
Less voters.
The DA in 2014 reached its zenith under Helen Zille, 4,004,000 votes in a country that was 25 million people smaller, into our 15 million people smaller in 2014. This time, Steenhuisen got 3.5 million votes. That is over 500,000 votes fewer. That is significant. That's 1/8 of the actual votes they lost. They gained a little percentage, but that's because nobody went to the polls. The ANC lost 1.5 million votes. So they all lost votes. That's 2 million voters right there that didn't go to the polls who voted in the last 2 elections. So there's no mandate here. Donald Trump has a mandate. Donald Trump had an overwhelming electoral victory, an overwhelming popular vote victory. Donald Trump has a mandate. You don't have a mandate, DA. Neither does the ANC. This is nonsense. I mean, they got to stop. They think people are stupid. And I guess some people are.
That's the thing. They are treating their voters like the ANC treats their voters. They think that they can't think for themselves. And listen, I had a couple of people on my stream that were defending the DA still, saying, "Oh, Ronaldo, you're a bitter X." And I'm just like, I'm at that point now where if you call me a bitter X, you are the fucking idiot. Sorry, I swore on your channel. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I'm used on my channel. I'm used to that. But Ronaldo just joined the Freedom Front Plus. No, I didn't join the Freedom Front Plus. I said that I will be voting for the Freedom Front Plus
different.
in the 2026 election. There's a big difference.
I voted Republican for years and was an independent.
Yep. So, yeah, I mean, ultimately, just what another absolute failure by the DA that they caused themselves. And the reason I say that is because they were the ones that threw down the gauntlet of the ultimatum, 48 hours. And then the ANC, I think the only way that they responded was when Cyril released that letter to outline what happened. And they were caught with their pants down because, hey, guess what now? Ooh, so they threw the ultimatum down and now they didn't get what they want. Guess what they did? Oh, we're not going to participate in the national dialogue. So let me just understand you correctly. So if Andrew Whitfield wasn't fired, you would form part of the national dialogue that's costing 720 million rand.
Exactly.
But now because Andrew Whitfield was kicked out and you're not like reinstating him or firing other ministers, now you're not going to be part of it. It's just like, who is running the DA and what the hell is going on here?
And the dude that asked one of the last questions, who stuttered like Jacob Zuma, asked exactly that question. That was brilliant. Look, I got to say, Ronaldo, except for the first question, this was the most impressive set of questions I've seen from South African journalists. Actual, real questions in ages. And it wasn't accusatory or attacking. They're just legitimate questions. And closely from Power
Well, it's also
FM,
because
right on,
it's
brother.
ANC-funded media.
Yeah, but what? No, but even then, they usually ask stupid questions. These were actually legitimate questions that journalists should be asking. And in Nkosi, man, that would just blew everything away. It's something I've been saying for a long time. Does the DA need the GNU, or does the GNU need the DA? That was absolutely brilliant. And they didn't really answer it, of course. And so, by the way, I interrupted the broadcast. I put John on silent for a little bit there to announce real news. More South African families arrived this week as refugees. Someone I've been in touch with from the very beginning who sent an email in. They arrived on Wednesday and have already gone from their temporary lodging to permanent lodging in just a couple of days. It's only Saturday. And someone else went to another part of the country. So 2 more South African families came. This process happens each and every day. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've flown from South Africa to the United States in the past 3 weeks, you will notice there isn't a single freaking empty seat on any commercial flight. None, unless somebody didn't show up at the flight. Those planes are full of South Africans getting the fuck out of South Africa and coming to America. The refugee process is in full swing. Full swing. They're just not telling you about it.
And a lot more people are becoming more envious of these Afrikaners that decided to leave, it seems. So that is why the media has kind of gone quiet now, because they realize, oh, wait, it's not the gotcha moment that we thought we're going to get. In actual fact, these people are truly pioneers, like you've labeled them, like I've labeled them. And yeah, so now they choop still with that. It's mind-blowing, man.
Yeah, everything they took. By the way, I got attacked by the flying monkeys this past week. They did a TikTok video about me. And then at the end, they said something snarky. No, he's just so stupid. He doesn't even know the difference between 49 and 59.
Well, it was 59.
It was 59. Yeah, the fact that you believe the cockprot press in South Africa, which also finally changed the story because they watched my broadcast once they confirmed after I'd already proven anyway. But it's these people they live in a delusional world, man.
Yeah, but I'm done with the woke left. I mean, let them. They eat themselves up eventually.
Yep.
You know, like. I don't really care about them anymore because anyway, the pendulum is swinging away from them. So before you know it, I bet you in 3 or 4 years from now, you're going to actually hear them be a lot more conservative because, hey, all they're chasing is clout. And when it's popular to be, in a couple of years, when it's actually going to be popular to be conservative, then you're going to find suddenly all these prozzies from Sunnyside and 3 beanie men are going to suddenly start talking a lot more conservatively. Anyway.
Yeah, anyway. Well, let's let that go. Yeah. No, but this was beyond disappointing. And it was like watching Peanuts, Charlie Brown. when Lucy holds the football and Charlie comes up to kick it. And every time she just snatches it out from him and he falls down on his back. That's exactly what happened to us. We got punked. Steenhuisen set this up so clearly, built the anticipation. We're going to leave the GNU. We're going to leave the GNU. This. We're going to leave the national dialogue.
Yeah, because at that moment when he said we are leaving and I was like, okay, I was waiting for the and when he started with I was like, no, that's not right. And it's like national dialogue. I was like, oh, ew.
Oh, this was a big nothing burger. What a waste of Saturday. And look, I'm a huge rugby guy. Rugby's a big deal. I'm covering the game in 32 minutes, but who gives a crap about an exhibition game against the Barbarians if the government of South Africa is fundamentally changing? Well, I guess nobody cares because it wasn't fundamentally changing. They're more worried about getting Viliocamp. We're going to go watch the rugby. Dude, we know
stupid,
that.
Eh?
That was
How
stupid.
stupid was that?
Show how disconnected. This is the most serious topic you could possibly talk about. You're meeting on a Saturday, ostensibly in response to the lack of response from the ultimatum, and all you do is prattle on about the rugby. That was embarrassing.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned it literally 3 or 4 times. Like, we don't want to be late for the rugby. It's like, guys, you were the ones that called this press conference at 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Secondly, now that you're treating the rugby more important than what the actual issue is, and that I did a poll. I actually did, I think, 2 or 3 polls. And the first poll was, do you think the DA would leave the GNU? And 80% said no. And that's with, I think, 600 votes. And then the second poll was, do you want the DA to leave? And there was 80% that said yes. Mm-hmm. Most people that vote for the DA or that don't vote for the ANC or the EFF or MK want the DA to leave. And the reason for that is because they want a solid opposition. Again, we don't have that at the moment. And the DA could honestly do better work in the opposition benches than what they are doing now in the government of national unity.
Yeah, it's crazy. Let me take 3 things from the chat here real quick. Dirk says, Byron on Morning Shot's not convincing more people have left besides Nish 59. I haven't talked to Byron about that, so I don't know his position on that. But if he doesn't believe more than 59, then he's wrong. He's wrong. I've spoken to people who are in the United States. They don't have area codes from different states in the United States if they live in South Africa. It's a pretty elaborate plan to punk me if that's the case. I've actually seen where they're at on WhatsApp phone calls. You know, it's real. It's not AI. So I mean, I don't know. I don't know what Byron said, so I can't address that. Russell Hulley says, I don't need financial helping hand for the refugee program. I'm selling my plot, my car, my bike, my trailer. I will pay my own way and start my own business. Well, here's a little tip for you there, Russell. No, you won't. I don't care if you're rich. If you got $5 million to get yourself a visa, and if you do, it takes months, if not a year, to get that. So I think you fundamentally misunderstand. The refugee program is not for poor people. It's not a handout. The refugee program is for people whose lives are in jeopardy. If you fall into that category and you want to come to America, then put a statement of interest in. You get free access. You get free process to get a green card. You get here immediately, and you're given work authorization the moment you land. So, if you come over in the program you're talking about, you got to have $5 million or more U.S., not 5 million Rand. That's a joke. So, Russell, not picking on you, but I don't think you understand what's going on. The refugee program is not for poor Afrikaners. It's for South Africans whose lives are in jeopardy. And there was one more here. Good.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
I think that if you're a businessman, it would be very stupid to decide to pay for something that you can get for free. Well,
but beyond that, the fact is that if you come over on a business visa, there's all kinds of conditions and restraints. But if you come over as a refugee, there are no restrictions. You are allowed to do everything an American. You have every protection of our Constitution that an American has, except one thing when you arrive here. There's only one thing you don't have. Well, 2. You don't have a U.S. passport because you're not a U.S. citizen. But there's one thing you can't do, and that is you can't vote. That's it. Mm-hmm. You can own a business. You can buy firearms. You can start a business. You can do whatever you want. Legally. Mm-hmm. And here's one last thing I'm going to get here. So Gavin Grant said, what's happening on July 9th, by the way? Well, July 9th is the end of the 90-day pause that President Trump put on reciprocal tariffs. South Africa had mostly duty-free access to our marketplace, which allowed them to develop a trade surplus and have two-way trade of $20 billion a year. And then what happened with that? That's over $1 trillion how much is that? 20 times 20, whatever that is, $2 trillion of trade with the U.S. every year. But that duty-free exemption disappears with a go, which expires on 30 September. And it was suspended for South Africa because of their conduct anyway, so that's gone now. And then he put reciprocal tariffs in at the beginning of April, 31% for South Africa. Well, he paused it a couple days later, and on July 9th, that pause expires. There's no ambassador from South Africa. There's no special envoy here. There's no trade representative, no trade team. They didn't even attend the U.S.-Africa Business Summit in Angola, right down the road. 14 heads of state went there, and South Africa didn't send anybody of note. Parks Tau wasn't there. Andrew Whitfield wasn't there. Ramaphosa wasn't there. So you are going to see your goods go from 10%, which was a flat when he applied across the board to give countries time to negotiate in the 90 days. Well, they haven't negotiated. So 0 went to 10%. 10% goes to 31% on July 9th, and your economy goes in the crapper. That's what that is.
Arctic said that you cannot own a firearm as a refugee. Well, I just Googled it, and it says generally refugees can own firearms in the USA, but it depends on their specific immigration status and state laws.
Exactly. It depends on the state, so he's wrong. He said that before. He's not correct. Erica Suthi, 100 Rand, says, what is stopping citizens from demanding a referendum or re-election? Who is the best leader? Well, there's no process for citizens to demand a referendum, to my knowledge, on your constitution. I could be mistaken. Can't believe... CUM unfriendly. What's that, Gene? I don't know what that means. Anyway.
So just to what Erica said, she ends off by saying the circus currently playing out as a disgrace, but she said, who is best to lead South Africa? Man, laat ek nou vir jou 'n ding vertel nie. Ek dink regtig you must realize that the Freedom Front Plus under Dr. Corné Mulder, if you just take a quick look, they sent 3 Afrikaners to go and sort the United States out, and they did exactly that. So lend your vote to the Freedom Front Plus, and if they don't deliver, then you can go back to the DA that clearly does not deliver anymore.
What's this 500,000? What's this 500,000 in America? 500,000 what? I don't know. Somebody's talking about 500,000. There's a couple notes here. I don't know what the 500,000 is. I don't know what that is. Anyway, so I don't know what that is. Yeah, we're leaving South Africa. The hatred, the threats behind, says Rex is human. Yep. No, I got you on that. Anyway, Ronaldo, it was a big nothing burger. That's what it was.
It could have been an email. Could have been a press release. Actually, in fact, it would have been better if it was the email, because then they wouldn't have had to sit there with like egg on their face. Because it's like I mean, we knew, like you and I knew, that this ultimatum, the ANC was just going to wipe their bums with it. It's exactly what happened. And now, once again, the DA scored another own goal because another line in the sand has been crossed. I've lost count of how many lines in the sand they've now drawn and just ignored. They caused this, and now they've got egg on their face, and once again, they look weaker. They are causing this. As much as they want to blame the ANC, they are causing these self-inflicted wounds by doing these stupid press conferences.
This was an own
goal in which they create false hope. We are deciding to leave the national dialogue that nobody cares about and nobody supports initially. Like, so you are just telling us now that you would have attended it, but now you're not. Oh, great. Thank you. So what, let me ask you, what positive do you think the DA got out of this press conference?
Not one. They lost more voters again. They lost voters over Bella, lost a lot of voters. They lost voters over EWC. They lost voters, and now they're losing voters again. They've signed their death sentence. And not just that. A number of the people who are coming over as refugees used to vote DA, so they're not going to vote from over here. They're not going to drive to Washington, D.C. if they live in Las Vegas or Seattle just to vote, because that's what you have to do. You can't vote distance. You have to go to the embassy, which is on the other side of the country. So they're just not going to vote. Well, that's,
Just another thing I want to say before, because I'll let you wrap up towards the end of the show. But all I want to say before I leave is a lot of people, of course, are going to come now with the argument, why vote for a smaller party? Like, here's the thing. The future of South Africa is coalition governments. And ultimately what you want is competent and trustworthy people in key positions. So, if the day of seeing a 3 or 4% party as that, we know, like, look at Johannesburg, look at Pretoria, Pretoria, also known as, what are they called? Oh my God. Tshwane, sorry. If you look at, like, in Nelson Mandela Bay, it's all these small parties that are mayors. So, the future of politics in South Africa, specifically municipal elections, are going to be smaller parties that have the say. I would much rather, with the state of the DA, have a Freedom Front Plus mayor in charge, or a Freedom Front Plus speaker that can control the shit show that's going on. So just remember, the DA in 1994 was also a 1% party. Ultimately, what you want is you just want people that you can trust in those positions.
Yep.
And unfortunately, the DA, I think, has massive knock on that. But anyway, Chris, I'll let you be.
All right. Hey, thanks for coming over, Ronaldo. It's
Thanks
nice
for having me on.
Yeah, it's nice to have a little collab after this because it's just you talking there, just me talking here. It's nice for people to hear us bounce ideas off each other. All right, thanks. I'll let you drop off, and then I'm going to drop off in just a minute because I've got to get ready for the rugby at the top of the hour.
Cool, and good luck, and go Boca. Woo!
Yeah, Boca,
Cheers.
Boca, Boca. Yep, cheers. All right, that's Ronaldo Gos, the next Deputy Minister for Trade and Industry. The DA will be putting his name in tomorrow. I missed Karl-Hein Mostad gave 40 rands, says, thank you for your voice. You're very welcome, Karl-Hein. And then Merlot just gave one and said, so much crap coming out of John's mouth, his ass must be jealous. Yeah, guys, that was just embarrassing, to say the least. All right, we're going to wrap up here. Thanks for tuning in. Almost 16,000 people watched this. We do appreciate it. And I'll do some analysis of this, but I'm running out of time to do that analysis because I got rugby in 20 minutes. I got to prep for that. So, guys, we'll see you over on Rugby Ascendant for the Springboks versus the Babas, the Barbarians. 45,000 tickets purportedly sold before today. I don't know if they were sold at the gate today for that game. So pretty exciting stuff there. The Springboks have not had a good record against the Barbarians. They're only 2 losses and 1 victory in the professional era. So they need to win today. Thanks for being here. Thanks to Ronaldo for coming over and joining me late in the program. And we'll catch you guys later on. Be sure to check out Ronaldo's channel, Ronaldo Gos, and subscribe to his channel if you haven't done. Also subscribe to my channel. And we appreciate being here. God bless. See you at the rugby.